We are live, brother.
Folks, what is up? Welcome to the Vol Talk podcast. You are here with Austin, that's my brother, and you are here with myself, Blake. We are here to talk all things volunteer sports. Today, Austin, it's not going to be a pretty one. We are talking about the loss to Vanderbilt at home. Tennessee Vols lose to the Vanderbilt Commodores 45-24 at home yesterday. It is our solemn duty to cover that and review that, and we've got some opinions on the just the results of the game, and who needs to take some responsibility and some changes that need to happen, Austin. But we also, speaking of changes, are going to be talking a lot today about the coaching carousel because right now, as we speak, we are live, and coaching carousel updates are happening live. Pins are
Yep.
dropping. We've got a correction to put out regarding a video
We
for the
do.
coaching carousel. So a lot to talk about today, Austin.
Yeah, a lot to talk about. Not a lot of it's fun. Like, we don't want to talk about getting beat down against Vanderbilt, but I think there's some tough conversations that have to happen, man. We have Tim Banks in the title. I think that's an easy one. I think we all want Tim Banks fired at this point, and so we'll get into some details on that and why we think it should happen. And then, of course, maybe some even questions about the head coach. I think me and Blake both want Heupel to be our head coach, but we'll get into some of the details on that. We'll talk about the game a little bit. Like, I'll talk about the game a little bit, but I don't want to talk about getting outscored 24-3 in the second half, Blake. That's not a very fun experience. And dude, just overall, yesterday the hate watch was terrible. I mean, this is one of the worst rivalry weekends for me, Blake, I can remember in a long, long time, dude. It was not a good weekend of football. But I think the coaching carousel, that will be a fun topic. So we'll get into that, have some fun with that. Maybe poke some fun at Lane Kiffin and trigger some LSU fans. So that should be a good time.
Exactly, because Lane Kiffin is doing it again, brother. He is looks like it's pretty much a done deal that he is out. So we'll talk about that. But speaking of being out, like you said, we think Timothy Banks needs to be out as defensive coordinator. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're
I
going
know,
to talk about all that,
bold,
folks.
giving up 45 to
Bold,
Vanderbilt. It
yeah,
makes you
right.
eligible for being fired. That's a bold thing to say, apparently, according to some.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna get into all that, folks. Chat is already off to the races. We've got actually a lot of people already jumping in.
Yeah.
Look, Austin, I guess people were chomping at the bits. We
They
apologize
were.
once again. We're late. I'm gonna be honest. Look, folks. I'm gonna be honest with you. We pretty much yapped for a whole podcast episode worth of yapping before we got on because we had to get out the curse words and the
Yeah.
vitriol, the absolute vitriol that we have over
I,
this loss.
I'm
Okay.
sure some of it will
So,
come through, Blake.
some of it is still going to come
Some of
through.
it will
There's going to be a
spill
lot of
over.
vitriol. There's a lot of vitriol that's spewing from me for a few days. So we're going to get into all that. Quick shout out to folks already jumping in the chat. Welcome, Rachel, my wife. Love you. Good to see you, babe, in the chat. We've got Ryan in the chat already saying he was just thinking about that video that we put out about Golish. Yes, Golish is going to Auburn, not Arkansas. We'll talk about that. Backflip Spaghetti, welcome. And then we've got All Day Ginger and Herb as well in the chat. Herb saying long overdue. Yes. So welcome everyone to the Vol Talk channel. And please, folks, if you are new to the Vol Talk channel, subscribe. It's that simple. Just hit that little button. Turn on the notifications if you're feeling froggy, but at least do me a favor and subscribe. And despite the vitriol that we're about to be going through, talking about this Vanderbilt loss, please give us a like on this video. It really helps the video, really helps the algorithm. And then, of course, jump in the chat because we do this because we want to chat with our fellow Vol fans about all things volunteer sports. And if you're watching after the fact, drop us a comment and let us know what you think about the coaching carousel, and let us know what you think about Tennessee being a part of the coaching carousel for a coordinator, specifically a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, because get your applications ready.
Yeah, get your apps ready. We got Lamone in the chat as well. Welcome, Lamone. Good to see you, buddy. So Austin, let's get into the game review because we want to rip that Band-Aid off
Uh,
in terms of talking about the game itself. We're going to review the game and then we'll talk about our thoughts on some changes that need to occur. So
yeah.
Austin, just real quick, I know we don't want to spend too much time on it, but walk us through the game itself.
Hard one to watch, man. Hard one to watch. It was another great example of this 2025 team. Not a fun game to watch. This is a very unenjoyable Tennessee team because it just felt like there was always something left on the table. And we got the funny thing is, Blake, if you look at Diego Pavia's stat line at the half, you would think he's having a pedestrian performance. I mean, he has no
Right.
touchdowns, two interceptions, barely any yards. Yet it's still a 21-21 ball game, and they're moving the ball all game long. Dude, I mean, they could have scored 70 if it weren't for a couple of amazing interceptions. Shout out to Ty Redmond. Ty Redmond's pick was incredible. Perfect man coverage, snagged it right out of the air, and it read the receiver's eyes to know that he was looking for the ball. So it wasn't even that. It was like, oh, they're just passing on us, and whatever. We're not making any good plays on defense. No, we got two big stops on defense. Yet they still had almost 600 yards of offense, Blake. We sacked Pavia several times, I think 4 in total, and they still had 556 total yards because everything else was just awful, and specifically run defense. I mean, this has been the big issue of this Tennessee defense all season long. I mean, just wide open holes. I mean, just letting Pavia, and this is the game where it's like all those simulated pressures that I call for, Blake, sending linebackers on blitzes, they all came at the wrong time. I mean, I know I call for it, but they came at the wrong time. We'd send a linebacker up the middle, and Pavia would find another gap and run for 20 yards. I mean, just looking at the rushing totals, dude, it was pathetic. I mean, this has to be, and I didn't do research on this, but specifically rushing has to be one of the biggest discrepancies from Vanderbilt to Tennessee. I mean, 300 plus rushing yards for Vanderbilt, maybe 350. I don't even have it in front of me, to like 80 for Tennessee. It was pathetic, dude. Like, you're telling me Vanderbilt dominated us in the trenches. Vanderbilt. I know, listen, there's a lot of people on social media, there's a lot of people in our chat. We want to hear what y'all want to say, and we want to have a conversation and actually talk through it and see what's going on. But at the end of the day, Blake, I don't care that Vanderbilt's competing for the playoffs. I really don't. I really don't care what the record is. If you look at any metric as far as talent's concerned, right? You look at blue chip ratio, you actually watch the players, you look at PFF grades, you look at draft prospects. Tennessee, top to bottom, is a more talented football team. And it's in the mecca of college football. This happened in
Yes.
Neyland Stadium, people. It happened in Neyland. And by the way, whether you were there yesterday or you're watching on TV, Blake, not an empty seat in the stadium,
Right.
102,000 strong, okay? And we got outrushed 300-80 versus Vanderbilt, man. How does that happen?
Uh, Good question. It's an absolute mystery how that happens, and it is absolutely unacceptable. Chat is agreeing with us. Lamone in the chat saying, hey, it happens every 6 or 7 years. I'm surprised to hear you say that you're not really upset about it, Lamone. I'd never want to lose to Vanderbilt ever. We have won nearly 80 times against them in the last 100 years. We don't lose to Vanderbilt at the University of Tennessee, but I hear what you're saying. And Lamone's saying he agrees that it was just terrible coaching on Tennessee's part. We've got Jace in the chat. Welcome, Jace. Herb is calling, saying, hey, how about the Auburn defensive coordinator?
Mhm.
That might be a good pickup.
Well,
Boomhauer and Robert also agreeing that it's a very sad day for the Vols. Awesome. What were you going to say real quick?
yeah, going back to Lamone's point, which is interesting. And here's the thing. I see where you're coming from. Just because, like, the result the result of win or loss doesn't matter to me as much as what we actually saw, the performance. And I
Right.
say this all the time on the podcast. It's like, dude, if you lost the close shootout to Vanderbilt, right? If you lost to Pavia in a shootout, and I said even on the preview, I gave Pavia credit. It's like he's played well this year, right? He's played well, even though him and his family are not who I would want to represent my university personally, but they have played well this year, okay? He has played well this
Right.
year. But Blake, it's how we lost. We got
Yeah.
annihilated. And I
Yeah.
get like, I planned on, after the first half coming on here and being like, hey, what about that roughing the passer call? The roughing the passer call doesn't even matter. It's a 3 touchdown loss, dude. And it's not just the fact that Timothy Banks put together his when you have the laundry list of bad performances that he has, and that's ranks number one. That's pretty incredible, man. That's pretty incredible because you've in 2025, and remember, people, that goes back to last football season against Ohio State in the shoe. That list is getting pretty long. Yet I would still put this one number one. But Blake, it wasn't even that. And you've made this point before we got on the show. The offense didn't respond. The offense couldn't do
Yeah.
anything in the second. You got shut down by Vanderbilt's defense in the second half of the football game. I mean, it was just top. We've been calling for all year, right? Even before the Florida game and all season before that, we're like, we need a complete performance. We put together the complete performance, right? And we beat our rival, and we're all happy. We just beat the worst Florida team potentially ever, with the worst coach potentially ever that just got fired from Florida. Great, that was great. We put together a complete performance. Blake, we followed it up with a complete terrible performance. It was top to
Yeah.
bottom, absolutely awful. All phases of the football. There was really no redeeming qualities of the game.
And that is the most frustrating part for me, because we talked about that as like, man, okay, great. You got up for Florida in the swamp and you went down there and took care of business. Excellent. Let's carry that momentum. We need to carry the momentum, regardless of if we're not going to get in the playoffs. We need to carry the momentum through the end of the season and beat Vanderbilt. And then you followed up with just a completely flat performance all the way around. So definitely not a good look. And so, yeah. And again, chat is agreeing with us here. Vincent in the chat. Agreeing. We got Jace in the chat talking about bowl games. Jace, we'll get to the
And
bowl games later, but
yeah, we just don't have interest. I'll be honest. Like I don't care what bowl game this team's playing in. I don't. And we're gonna probably cover it, but at the end of the day, we have serious conversations that we need to be having about our football program. We do. We have serious conversations, and and listen, social media can like warp your perception because it really does feel like most people in our chat, Blake, are pretty much in agreement here. But there are some people out there right now that think this is okay. It's never okay to lose to 21 points to Vanderbilt. It's just not. That's never an okay thing. Blake, I showed you a stat before we got on here. We didn't beat a bowl eligible team this year, Blake. We didn't beat a bowl eligible team. Like, y'all have to understand, we're 8-4. Like, and you can say, wow, if that's Hypo's, if that's Hypo's, absolute floor, that's pretty good, dude. A dead man walking could have went 8-4 this year. I mean, we beat two of the worst SEC teams. And Blake, let's remember, Mississippi State was overtime. It was overtime.
Yeah.
It took a game tying drive and then OT to win the game. And then Arkansas, we almost let them come back at the end. And if it weren't for us picking up a first down on the last drive, they probably win the game. Like, you really think Tim Banks' defense, Blake, is stopping Arkansas at the end of the game? Like, really? Like, does anyone in the chat believe that?
Right.
You think Arkansas gets the ball back in Neyland this year, they're not going down to score a touchdown? Yeah, they probably are.
Boomhauer in the chat also made a good point that, we lost our near invincibility at home, 3 losses at home. That's also not good.
Yeah.
And so, folks, we're gonna get more into this Tim Banks conversation, because obviously that is we're gonna talk about how there needs to be some changes, right? Because look, we'll get into that conversation because it's gonna be a long, good conversation. But just real quick, I'm gonna finish catching up on the chat here. Ryan making a great point that, hey, we have a better roster and more resources than Vandy.
That's
And then we got whooped. So that's what, like you said,
and
Austin, it's the nature of the loss, right? It's just, not only is losing to Vanderbilt unacceptable, and yeah, cool, they've got Pavia. It's still not. We have more talent, we have more resources, and we were at home. Shouldn't have happened. Shouldn't
we
have happened.
and we gotta I think we gotta dig into what Ron said, Blake, because that's an interesting point. Because it's and do you want to know what I think happened last night? And because for one, I think Heupel used up all the energy. All the energy was put into the Florida game, and they completely looked past this game. They did. And not necessarily looked past it because they have another game to play. It was more so they looked past it in the fact that this game really doesn't mean much to us. I'm not going to be able to emotionally motivate my team by playing Vanderbilt. But two, the
Right.
flip side of that coin, Blake, and this is how the blowout happens. This game meant everything to Vanderbilt, dude. They've been
Yes.
talking
Yes.
about it all off season. They've literally been talking about it all off season. Diego Pavia has gone on podcast and said, "This is the game that we need to take back Tennessee," and they spoke it into existence. And listen, I hate Pavia as much as the next guy. I hate him even more now that he beat us, by the way. And I'm rooting against him. I hope they don't make the playoffs. Okay, that's where I'm at.
They're
But at the
probably
end of
not
the
going
day,
to, by the way.
and they're probably not going to. But dude, at the end of the day, they spoke it into existence. They said, "This is what we're gonna do." He said, "I'm gonna be in the Heisman conversation, and I'm gonna have Vanderbilt at the playoff conversation as well." And guess what? Both happened, dude. We have to sit, and at the end of the day, we have to sit back and say, Pavia is probably gonna be in New York, and they won 10 games and put themselves in a position to make the playoffs because they said it. Stop. I want our leadership to stop apologizing for having high expectations. Vanderbilt got laughed out of the building, but they didn't apologize for it. And what did they go out and do, Blake? They owned us in Neyland. At the end of the day, they owned us. They did. And so stop apologizing for wanting greatness. Stop apologizing for it, especially here.
Yeah.
That's Vanderbilt, dude. They're nothing. They've accomplished nothing in the sport. It's their first ever 10-win season, Blake. First ever. It's never happened. Never happened in the history of the school. We have like 23, and we're the ones sitting back on our hands having to listen to Mr. Josh Pate and Kirk Herbstreit that tells us, "Oh, well, it's fine. Like it's Tennessee. Like, because since you had Derek Dooley, you have to accept 8 wins." No, man, that's insane. It's an insane thing to say.
We're gonna get into that because it is that's definitely not the case. At Tennessee, obviously, it's the standard is higher. The anomaly was the decade of dysfunction. That was the anomaly. That's not the norm. And so we're not just happy with 8-4, but particularly the fact that missing not just missing the playoffs, but also not winning games that we should have won or that we were favored to win. Austin, you brought that up about Vegas, all that good stuff. And so, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into.
Let's get into. I got real quick because, like, Jose, you're okay. Jose's a Georgia fan, right? Imagine waking up on a Sunday morning, Blake, and you realize you can play in the SEC championship, and you find a Vol channel to talk in the chat with. I mean, dude, that's just sad, man. That's just sad. So your messages are now hidden, and we're moving on. Like, come on, dude. Like, find something better to do on a Sunday morning than get in a Vol channel and talk about the Vols when your team's about to be in the SEC championship, dude. It's pathetic.
Yeah. Backflip spaghetti. So talking about a hilarious short on Lane Kiffin. So we are going to be talking about Lane Kiffin eventually, backflip, and that is going to be a fun conversation, making fun of Lane Kiffin. That's going to bring us a little bit of joy in an otherwise not so joyous situation right now, having lost to Vanderbilt. But backflip thinks that they are going to make the playoffs and they're going to be the Cinderella and all that. I just don't know if there's a path. Austin, maybe if Alabama loses in the SEC championship, but even then, Vanderbilt would have to jump teams like BYU and Miami and things like that. So I think it's very unlikely at this
Yeah,
point.
they won't put Vandy in the playoffs over Alabama. That's not going to happen. I mean, I don't. I think Alabama could lose 60-0 and it wouldn't happen. But yeah, I mean, we'll see if they make the play. I really don't care if they make the playoffs. I'm worried about us and us losing to Vanderbilt more so them, because we just shouldn't do that here. We shouldn't lose by 3 touchdowns to Vanderbilt in the fashion that we did, which we got dominated in the second half, completely embarrassed in the second half.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. So, Austin, any other? I'm going to catch up on chat here in a second, but are there any other kind of notes before we kind of dig more into the coaching conversation of Tim Banks and all of that on the game itself? In term, like kind of take. Well, I mean, things like Mike Matthews dropping a TD pass. You mentioned that to me. That was not a good look. We need receivers to stop dropping passes. We
Yeah,
did
I
mention
mean,
that the offense didn't respond as well. Any other kind of notes on the game itself?
yeah, Mike Matthews he's a talented player. And he's I think he's got a bright future, but this year has been extremely frustrating because every time he drops a pass, it's a critical pass. And this once again was a critical pass where you have an opportunity. We're down 10, we've got our backs against the wall. And if you score that touchdown, it's a 3-point ball game. Now we all know how it would have ended. I mean, Vanderbilt would have gone down and score anyways because Tim Banks couldn't stop a cold. So yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, you have to make that play. And Mike Matthews has consistently, again, it's not the volume. The volume is not the problem of drops. It's when the drops take place. And he has that problem, dude. Listen, I want him to be on the team next year. I want him to develop and get better because I do think he's a talented player. But these critical drops, dude, it's hard to watch, man. It's been hard to watch, and it's been a theme for specifically him all year.
Yeah, exactly. We need that to improve, especially if depending on our quarterback situation next year. We'll eventually talk about that and Joey potentially returning things like that. But quick catch up on the chat here. Welcome to Einlander. Welcome to KW. I think y'all's names are kind of your hidden usernames and not your display names. So you got some funky names here. Apologize if I mispronounce anything, but welcome to everyone. Thank you all for jumping in the chat. Please join the conversation. Danny as well. Welcome, Danny. We're welcome to all conversation, even if you disagree with what we're saying. That this is a space for Vols fans and college football fans in general, so long as we don't get into silliness like old Jose or Joe or whatever his name was.
And I think we have to get into conversation with KW because it's interesting because this is something that I've talked about a lot on the channel, and I think you're new to the chat, so we appreciate you joining. He says he or she says 8-4 is not bad considering the QB chaos. And I just want to focus on that for a little bit, Blake, because it's been something that we've pushed back on a lot on this show. Because let's all rewind. Let's all rewind before the season started, Blake, and we're doing our season preview. Vegas set our win total before Nico left, right? Before Nico transferred at 9.5 wins. That was the win total. So they thought the roster was a 10 or 9 win team with Nico under center. Joey transfers here. The whole Nico debacle happens. What happens to the total, Blake? It goes down, right? It goes to 8.5 wins. So Vegas, by doing that, was saying, we think Tennessee's going to be worse off without Nico. But then what happened in the season, Blake? What did we see? How did we see the season playing out? We saw, and all Vols fans have to agree with this. They do, because we saw how well Joey Aguilar played, and we said, wow, he has elevated our offense. He has elevated our offense, especially compared to last year, where, again, with Nico under center, 3 straight games without scoring a point in the first half, Blake. Joey Aguilar didn't do that once this season. Once. I don't think there's a Vol fan on the planet who could honestly tell me that they think Nico was better in 2024 than Joey was under center this year. But when you make a point like, well, let's give the coaching staff an excuse because of the QB chaos, then you're telling me, Blake, the only way I can interpret that, and listen, if I'm wrong and there's another interpretation, please let me know. But when you say that, it tells me that you think Nico would have led this team to more wins this year. That's Blake, is there any other way to interpret that? To me, that's the only
No,
way.
exactly. Like that's saying that, hey, Nico would have been, because now look, and first of all, I want to say KW does make a good point in terms of like, hey, look, it could be worse. FSU went from 13-0 to 2-10. Yeah, thank God we're not in that situation. Absolutely. And yes, like so at least we didn't completely hit the floor, like KW said. That's a good point. But I think the more so than the quarterback situation, Austin, was the defensive injuries, the injuries on defense, particularly in the secondary. Obviously, Jermon McCoy never coming back, and then Ricky Gibson going down. I think that had more of an impact than the quarterback situation, because exactly to your point, like people seem to focus on, if you want to make that argument, let's talk about the injuries as opposed to the quarterback situation, where you've, statistically speaking, Austin,
You have no
Joey
leg to stand
compared
on.
to, yeah, statistically speaking, Joey compared to Nico last year and Joey compared to Nico this year. I know he's on a different team, but it's just obviously Joey elevated the offense. And so that doesn't, like, to your point, Austin's like, would we have gone 7-5,
No,
6-6,
but
had we had Nico?
But the conversation is not close, though, in my opinion, Blake. I mean, he just led Nico to a 3-9, or Nico led UCLA to a 3-9 season. If you look at traditional statistics, if you look at advanced statistics, everything says that Joey Aguilar is a better quarterback than Nico. So you can't use that as a built-in excuse to say, well, Heupel had to scramble and get Joey Aguilar before the season, because the other alternative was Nico under center. And to your last point, Blake, Nico under center this year, if y'all just think about how frustrating this defense was, imagine if you had the 2024 offense without Dylan Sampson paired with this defense. It would have been a terrible football team. It's likely that we only win one or two SEC games with Nico under center this year. So again, to your point, dude, if you want to find an excuse, okay, if you want to find an excuse, your better argument would be that your two starting corners were out all year. And
Yeah,
I
exactly.
still would even push back on that, Blake, because we have talked about that Ty Redmond and Colton Hood have been solid replacements. I mean, we're not talking
Right.
about Ty Redmond and Colton Hood being two of the worst Tennessee corner duos in their history. I mean,
Yeah.
they are a step below Jermon McCoy and Ricky Gibson. They are, but they aren't just
It wasn't
not
3 years ago
serviceable.
bad. Right.
Exactly. They're not 3 years
Yeah.
ago bad. They're not, Butch Jones era level bad. These are two
Yeah.
really good cornerbacks, man. They really are. So
Yeah.
I even push back on that excuse. And listen, I know, but here's the thing too, Blake. I think if a couple games don't slip up, I think Jermon McCoy ends up coming back to play. I think if we had playoffs on the line, I think Jermon McCoy would have played this year too, but we let games slip that we probably shouldn't have let slip. So I know, listen, I think, and listen, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe I'm just projecting this, but I believe the big reason a lot of our fans are going to the quarterback excuses because the biggest name, the biggest voice in this space, Josh Pate, has said that because and Blake, me and you have talked about this. Pate does a really good job of making fans feel good and giving fans hope. And he has a really good pulse on most of college football. But he also isn't watching the games game after game. He probably hasn't watched a snap of Nico this season. I think we can agree on that, Blake. Like he probably hasn't watched Nico under center at UCLA at all. So he uses this thing. It's like, well, look what Heupel did. Look what the circumstances. But I'm sitting here looking at it as the alternative is that Heupel dug his holes or his heels in with a quarterback that can't play on this level. And had he not gotten bailed out with Joey Aguilar transferring here in the spring, we could be even having a more bleak conversation. So I would just,
Yeah.
I would just encourage people to, look at that and see like Joey made this team better, not worse.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Statistically speaking, it's just the proof's in the pudding. Real quick, Boomhauer says, "I don't care what the situation is. You don't lose to Vandy by 3 touchdowns at home." That's absolutely, like, let's at least all agree on that. Bottom line
Yeah,
is
easy.
you don't lose to Vanderbilt by 3 touchdowns at home. Period. And Austin, historically, if I'm not mistaken, that's the most points they've scored against us since 1928, and might be their largest margin of victory. I don't know. So yeah, you don't lose by that much to Vandy at home. Let's see here. Donovan makes a great point. Donovan and Eric both. I want to shout out real quick. We're gonna try to get to everyone's points in the chat as much as we can. We may not get to everything, but Donovan, we're probably gonna talk at some point about your point about Heupel needing to give up play calling. Austin, we've talked about that. Um, you're absolutely right, Donovan. There's too much on a head coach's plate to be able to do play calling and everything else. So Austin and I have talked about that a lot, and we will continue to talk about that. So we'll circle back to that. Richard, welcome Richard in the chat. Fan of 52 years, says he doesn't like this trend. Absolutely, we're going to talk about that as well. Reese talking about Kurt Signetti. We made a point like that in a previous video, Reese. I don't know if you've seen it, but the fact is that we shouldn't just accept mediocrity at Tennessee. We should want better because there can be better. And then Eric talking about, hey, Hype needs to make a change. Otherwise, the problem.
Period.
And Eric, we're gonna get to that point a lot. And let me say real quick, we're at almost 60 concurrent viewers. Welcome everyone to the Vol Talk channel. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We love chatting with you guys about this stuff. Up past 64 now. Keep inviting your friends in. We want this conversation to keep going. Let me say right now, as everyone's coming in, Austin and I are not calling for Heupel to be fired at all.
No, but we are
However,
calling for changes.
but we are calling for changes, and that's exactly Eric's point. Is that, hey, it's on Heupel to make the changes necessary to do better. And so, like, ultimately that comes down to the head coach. And so if he doesn't make those changes, then all of a sudden it is his responsibility and it is his problem. So we're going to talk a lot more about that. Chat continues to just pop off here, folks. Again, we're not going to be able to keep up with everything, but thank you all. Keep chatting, and we'll pull out points as we can. Austin, go for it.
And just real quick, just to put a bow on the Nico conversation, because I get, again, KW, you're making logically sound points. Like, you have to change your scheme, and that's true. Heupel had to change his scheme. My point to you is, whether he had to change his scheme or not, it was still a net positive, man. And that's where I'm asking you, do you think this team would have been better with Nico this year? And if your answer is no, you can't use it as an excuse. You just can't. You can't use it as an excuse. It was tough, right? You had to scramble to get a quarterback, but at the end of the day, scrambling to get a quarterback made this team a whole lot better. That's my point. It made the team better whether you had to scramble your scheme or not. So that's just what I would look at, man, because listen, dude, I don't know where Vol Talk would be if we had to talk about Nico for 12 weeks. I mean, it would not be good. It would not be good.
We shot off to the moon. We were kind of a pretty very small, still baby channel, and the Nico situation actually kind of shot this channel to the moon, so to speak. So we at least thank him for that. But yeah, no, it's again, it's very clear. We don't know exactly what would have happened had we had Nico still under center, because exactly,
No.
the scheme may have been different or whatever, but we do know that at least it seems clear from the stats and the evidence that it wouldn't have been better, and it most likely would have been worse.
And I just, and I'm not trying to pick on chatters, but you look at you're picking out one Penn State game. Penn State went 6-6, man. Like, I would just say, Reese, I strongly disagree with you, because if you look at Nico's, again, any advanced metrics and even the traditional box scores, man, we would not have been better with Nico this year, dude. I am 100% confident in saying that. I promise you. I've watched a lot of UCLA football this year because I hate watching Nico, and he would have been way worse, man. He would have been way worse. Plus the locker room issues, dude. You're not even taking into
Yeah.
account what that would have meant for the locker room, Blake.
Yeah, that well, and here's the deal. Once Nico sat out of practice, you didn't have a choice. He had to go.
He had to
Right.
go.
But even before that, there was evidence that it was starting to be a locker room issue. And so, yeah, the intangibles. And the thing is, Reese and everyone else, in my estimation, Nico is a very athletic guy. That's why he got a 5-star rating out of high school. He's a very athletic guy. But Austin, he showed that he was not a leader, and he showed that he couldn't run the offense. He just couldn't. He couldn't go through the progressions. It was just
exactly. He couldn't go through it, which, by the way, Blake, it was a very dumbed down offense. It's supposed to be a QB friendly offense where it's really just one half field read and the other half field read, and he could never get to the other half of the field, Blake. Like, I promise you all, Nico would have been worse this year. Like, did y'all watch the offense last year? That's my question. Did you watch the offense last year? Because at points, Blake, it was very hard to watch, and we covered the team. Like we like you said, we were a small channel at that point, but we were still covering the team. And I watched this team every single week, dude. The offense got a whole lot better this year. All the bums we had at receiver last year, Blake, who are now projected first rounders, were on the team last year. They were on the team.
Yeah, they were on the team.
Like,
now, of course, they
realize,
more and
you realize,
like that,
and I'm not trying to pick on you, buddy, but like, you realize Chris Brazzell was on the squad last year, and he's now a projected first round draft pick, and he wasn't even projected to go in the NFL draft with Nico under center. Like, that, you have to ask these questions, like, why did all of a sudden for the first time in school history, we have 3 receivers over 700 yards, Blake? Do you realize all 3 of those receivers were on the roster last year? Do you realize that?
Yeah, exactly. Now, again, Reese, everyone else in the chat, please, we love this conversation. Obviously, at the end of the day, we want the Vols to win, right? Everyone wants the Vols to win. And so, at the end of the day, we enjoy having this conversation with you guys.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about the solution, right? The solution in the future. Quick shout out to Kill.
Sorry, Blake. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go for it.
I was just saying, Chris Brazzell was a starter. He caught the game winning catch against Alabama. Chris Brazzell last year, like he was a starting receiver. Chris Brazzell started on the team last year. He just had no production because he had a quarterback who couldn't get him the ball.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think ultimately what it comes down to is Nico wouldn't get the ball out, right? And he was inaccurate and things like that. But really for me, it came down to Nico wasn't a good leader, and Nico didn't progress he didn't go through his progressions, and he didn't lead the offense. And ultimately, Austin, statistically speaking, he had, 5 touchdowns against SEC opponents last year,
dude.
And
outside of
what
Vanderbilt.
was it? 3 or 4 of those outside of Vanderbilt, right?
Yeah.
So because 4 of them came against Vanderbilt.
Vandy.
So now granted, that's maybe a point against either Aguilar or the play calling or something yesterday, which is that we couldn't score more than 24 points against the Vandy defense, which was that was also a problem.
No, it was
this game. Trust us, the offense has blame as well.
It does.
But statistically speaking, it's just, the Joey gets the ball out. He gets the ball into the hands of the receivers. Now, he has been accurate at times, and he has made some critical mistakes, but I mean, Nico made critical mistakes too, Austin. Yeah. He ran out of bounds against
Exactly.
Arkansas.
Are we just forgetting that?
4th down.
And dude, you make a great point. It's like, and listen, I'm not even saying Joey wasn't perfect this year. And that's next year's quarterback is going to be a conversation that we have in the offseason, Blake. But I am flabbergasted that there's any portion of this. And it very heavily makes me question like what your allegiance actually is, just because I have not met a Tennessee fan who actually thinks Nico would be better than Joey, or at least arguing that he was better. That's just, It's just wrong. It's just wrong. Like by
Well,
every metric, dude, there's nothing on your side that says that would have actually played out.
yeah, and look here to Reese's defense and other fans who might be thinking that, like, ultimately, I think everyone's just upset that we just lost to Vanderbilt, and
Yeah.
everyone's upset that we only went 8-4 this year, and so it's like, obviously there was a problem, and look, at the end of the day, it's more nuanced than just single answers, right? There's a lot of factors that went into it, and we're gonna do a season review, probably in the next week or two. And so subscribe for that. Turn on notifications. You get notified when we go. We always do big shows for the season preview and the season review. And so we're going to have a good conversation on that. And we'll talk more about this, right? But ultimately, Austin, I think to me also it just with Nico, it comes down to the intangibles, and it comes down to the fact that, I mean, look at the receivers. There were receivers were looking like they were going to leave the team if Nico stayed. Like, we were having an issue with receivers wanting to transfer away and things like that. Miles Kitselman came out and said, hey, look, he wasn't a leader, he didn't, and so I think ultimately we're never going to know for sure, right?
Yeah.
But there's just so much body of evidence, particularly from the other players and the intangibles, that it just wasn't going to be good.
Yeah.
And then he showed at UCLA that he didn't progress as a player, like just like as a pure player either.
Yeah, Joey. To be clear, Joey won 5 more games than Nico did this year. By the way, if we're just adding everything, like if we're just picking and choose, like maybe you give Joey that defense in 2024 and Dylan Sampson, maybe things are different. Blake, don't you think maybe things are a little different?
Man,
you give Joey that defense and that Dylan Sampson.
If only.
Yeah.
If only.
Yeah,
man.
I think things are a little bit different. I think we're having a little bit different conversation if we're just doing hypotheticals. Because I just, yeah, man, we don't know for sure, but I have a lot of conviction that Nico would have been a lot worse under center this year.
Now, I mean, ultimately, it's not like we wanted to be in a situation where we, had to get a transfer quarterback with 2 months to go, to the start of the season. So,
but thank goodness we did. But thank goodness we did, Blake.
Yeah. Well, even and I don't want to stay on Nico too much, because we got to get to the real culprit,
yeah,
okay?
we do.
We got to
the
talk
real
about
issue.
Timothy Banks. We got to talk about old Timothy Banks. But I even said halfway through last season, Austin, and I was like super on the Nico train. I was like, yes, let's go, let's get him a Heisman. But then about halfway through, I realized, I was like, I don't think he's got the mental faculty to be able to run this offense. And he didn't. But again, chat is going off here. I wanted to shout out Killer Dude earlier. Austin, this might be something that we can talk about. Killer Dude, talking about the strength and conditioning coach and how Vanderbilt kind of pushed us around on both sides of the ball, and how that can't happen. Definitely agree with that. In terms of the strength and conditioning coach, I don't know. Maybe that's something that we need to look at as well in terms of changes. But Austin, let's, Boomhauer saying, get Timothy out of here.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So let's get into that piece, right? So again, caveat for those of you who might just be just now joining us, Austin, I don't know if we've ever been over 70 concurrent viewers on a live stream, and we broke that, so we really appreciate you all. Continue sharing the stream. We would really appreciate that, and like the video, even though Reese, we appreciate that conversation, brother, and everyone else, even though obviously it's negative things that we're talking about right now, we would appreciate a like on the video. It helps the algorithm. But Austin, we talked about earlier, we're not calling for a change with Josh Heupel. However, Josh Heupel needs to make changes. And great coaches, the greatest coaches of all time, Nick Saban, when something's not working, you make changes.
Yep.
And it's tough, Austin, because of last year and how good the defense was last year. And then, there's like excuses people might make with like the cornerbacks and things like that. But as you said,
or the quarterback,
we had fine replacements at cornerback, in the secondary. And so ultimately it comes down to the fact that these bad performances for Tim Banks are piling up.
Yes.
And we just can't have I mean, the defense is the reason we
Dude,
lost several of these games. The offense had its blame in a lot of ways. Joey made some critical mistakes. The offense couldn't score several times, but ultimately the offense was better this year, and the defense got much worse.
100%. I mean, that's the only way to look at it from every metric. Anyone from an objective perspective would come to that conclusion. And dude, and listen, you talk the defensive performances are stacking up, man. I mean, you add this Vanderbilt performance to the top of a lot of bad performances already. And just to give first off, I gotta give a shout out to Daniel saying he did a little research just how bad was the Vanderbilt performance, and he basically found that this is the worst like Vanderbilt loss that we've had since literally the early 1900s. Like, I mean, this is, and we throw those out, Blake. So you add that to the Tim Banks performance list, right? And then again, the Ohio State playoff game, which was a pathetic Tim Banks performance. And then this entire season, man, I mean, he really outside of the Florida game, there hasn't been a good performance. And listen, people, we love the Florida win. I mean, you can go back if y'all didn't see it, our Florida review. We were thrilled. We were absolutely thrilled about that win, and I still am. That's our best memory from the year. But Blake, just again, if we're going to be fair, like aren't we supposed to try to be fair and try to like get to the truth and push some buttons? Like at the end of the day, the Florida win, what we did to Florida, everyone did to Florida. Kentucky did that to Florida.
Right.
41-7, they beat Florida, Blake. And by the way, to add some context to that Kentucky team, just lost 41-0 against Louisville. So everyone's get right game was against Florida. Now the question was, it was like we're everyone's get right game on offense, and they're everyone's get right game on defense. Like who's going to win that battle? Ultimately, we won that battle. And I think a lot of that was emotion and like we actually got up for that rivalry and things that we've talked about, Blake. But that's his only acceptable defensive performance all year long. We're talking about you made Mississippi State and Blake Shapen look good. Of course, Arkansas has a good offense, but you look terrible in that game. You look terrible against Bama. You look terrible against Georgia. You gave up the critical 4th and 6 against Georgia, Blake. And then, of course, this Vanderbilt game. Like, it's not been good. And even the Kentucky win, right? Because we blew out Kentucky, right? We were phenomenal in that game. Blake, do you know Cutter Boley has 15 passing touchdowns on the season? Guess how many he had against us? 5.
A good percentage.
Yeah, that's called a
them.
third for those at home that aren't good at math. If you have 15 on the season, hey, that's me too. That's me too. But listen,
that's me too.
Exactly. But this is some pretty simple math here. If you have 5 passing touchdowns against Tennessee and only 15 on the season, that accounts for a third of your passing touchdowns on the entire year. Like that's
Timothy Banks is
yes.
Yeah.
He's responsible for that, Blake. He's responsible for that. It's like, that's unbelievable. I mean, and that's just this season, Blake. That's just this season's performances of making everyone look good. Cutter Boley looked good against us, man. And Cutter Boley is terrible. But that doesn't even include Tim Banks has been here for Heupel's entire tenure. And that includes, right? And I know we don't want to bring up bad memories, but that includes 22 against South Carolina, where we're on the precipice of competing for a national championship. Like, we are right there. You beat South Carolina and Vanderbilt that season. You go on to play for a national championship in the college football playoffs, and you have a chance to do something here that hasn't been done here since 1998. And what happens? You give up 60 to Spencer Rattler in South Carolina. What are we supposed to just forget about that? Like, is that not supposed to be a part of the resume?
Exactly. And the people bring up, there's a conspiracy that maybe they had our signals and things like that. But, there was also talk of a locker room issue, but that still comes back to coaches, right? Like when people, talk about, oh, well, our talent, we don't have as much talent this year, or that year, or whatever. And yes, there are some years that are rebuilding years. Those should usually be kind of early on.
Yeah.
But there's different excuses like talent and things like that, or locker room issues. But that's part of what a coach needs to do. Including a defensive coordinator needs to have control of the locker room, and needs to be able to bring in the talent to replenish the defense, right? And so Look, we we quick shout out to T-Rex, triple T-Rex. Don't tell Sports Talk Jay he thinks all is well. I don't know, man. Like I don't know how you can come to that
I
conclusion after
I don't
losing by
either.
21 to Vanderbilt at home, brother.
I don't either, Blake, because at the end of the day, I I am with all y'all about Heupel, right? Like I want Heupel to be the guy. Heupel, the 22 Alabama win. Blake, I don't know how much we've talked about this on the podcast. We dang sure haven't talked about it in front of 84 people live, but that win meant everything to us, man. It meant everything to us.
Yes.
I cried
Yes.
after that win. It was so much. Like we genuinely shed tears. And Blake and I
Yes.
were away from each other at the time. We called each other on the phone, and neither one of us could even understand what we were saying. We basically just screamed over each other for 30 minutes. Yeah, literally. And that's how much it meant to us. So I get why so many of us are attached to Heupel. But what has Tim Banks? Tim Banks gave up 49 in that game, Blake. He gave up
exactly. Tim Banks
49
wasn't the
points
reason
in
they
that
won
game.
that game.
What are we
Yeah.
attached to Tim Banks for? Like, what?
Yes,
There
yes.
has been way more bad with Tim Banks than good. And I know what a lot of people will point to. Well, what about 2024? And I agree with you. We got on this podcast week after week, especially early in the year, Blake, and we said this is one of the best Tennessee defenses we've seen in a long, long time. However, if you go back retrospectively and look at last season's defense, okay, which is Tim Banks' only good year here as a defensive coordinator overall, right? In a vacuum, that is his only good year. What happened in the games that we played good competition? The defense wasn't even that good. Plus, are we just going to skip over the fact that he was playing with 4 first rounders? Like, are we just going to throw that under the rug? Like James Pierce, Jermod McCoy, Omar Norman Lott, Joshua Josephs were all on that squad. We're just going to ignore that fact? Like he had he's been given the talent. He's been given the talent. You can argue, and again, I'll shout out Sane because he's made this point a lot. How much of that talent accumulation was Tim Banks versus Rodney Garner? Because Rodney Garner got this defensive line rotation absolutely ferocious in 2024 and built that depth up. And a lot of times when we're talking about recruiting, Blake, a lot of it is the position coaches. So like the cornerbacks coach, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name at the moment, but the cornerback coach who has went out in the portal.
Martinez.
Yes, and thank you. And he has went out in the portal and targeted guys like McCoy and Colton Hood and got those guys in and developed those guys. Like how much do those position coaches deserve credit for that, Blake, versus Tim Banks? Tim Banks has. Oh, sorry, Blake. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, Rodney. You shouted out Rodney Garner. I mean, shoot, maybe we need to promote him to defensive coordinator. He's shown that he's a pretty dang good coach. Some people shouted out, the Auburn defense coordinator, who is probably potentially out of a job right now. And folks, speaking of that, we again thank you all for joining. Please share. Like the video, subscribe, but then also hit that share button and share it with your fellow Vols fans. We would love to continue this conversation with everyone. And we're going to be talking about the coaching carousel after we get done with this conversation. We're very heated. We're very passionate about this. We're fired up. We got to talk about this. But stick around because we are going to talk about all these pins dropping, Austin, in the coaching carousel. Looking like Lane Kiffin going to LSU, doing it again. Leaving Lane Kiffin, baby.
Yeah.
Lane the lever. And then we're going to also talk about speaking of other coaches and coordinators, our former coordinator, Alex Golish. He's looking like he's going to Auburn. We're going to talk about all that, folks. So stick around for that. But Austin, everyone in the chat seems to be mostly in agreement, like, and T-Rex calling him Timmy Twinkle Toes.
Yeah.
It's like, the body of evidence, just like the body of evidence was compiling against Nico, the body of evidence has compiled against Tim Banks. And I don't know how you can argue against it at this point because, to your point about the talent, Austin, people saying, making an excuse for the coaches this year, saying that our talent wasn't enough this year, even though we were past the 50% blue chip ratio for the first time, by the way.
So it's supposed to be the
now
most talented team in Josh Heupel history.
supposed to be. Now, granted, they are young. I will
They
give
are.
will give us that.
They
Like
are.
they're young, and we're going to talk about that on the season review, Austin. That next year, man, we better take a big step forward next year because you got a lot of talent. But if the talent argument can be made in the negative and separate from, I'm going to knock over my mic here, separate from the coaches, then it can also be made in the positive.
Yeah.
To your point that you just said, hey, we had we had all that defensive talent last
Dude.
year, and so maybe they kind of elevated Tim Banks instead of Tim Banks elevating them.
Exactly, Blake. Like that was the thing. He always had this built-in excuse when he first got here, Blake, because we had scholarship reductions. That was always the built-in excuse for the first couple years here. Right when the scholarship productions went away, what happened? All of a sudden, we had one of the deepest defensive line rotations in the entire SEC. And you could say, looking back, again, James Pierce right now is a complete menace in the NFL. Jermod McCoy's about to hear his name called in the top 15. Blake, you could argue that 2024 defense underperformed with that talent. You could make that argument. You could genuinely make that argument, Blake. And I just and you then you go to this year, and the people who just are, and I love Vol Nation. I love y'all, but don't throw your hands up and just be, oh, where's the talent? Where's the talent on defense? Blake, this is not a Derek Dooley level defense. Y'all are acting like that talent's coming through the door, Blake. That's what they're acting like. They're acting like Derek Dooley's coming through the door. Like, boys, this is not
Sal Sunseri as our defensive coordinator or something.
Thank you. Like, it's not Sal Cesare. He's not walking through that door right now with a bunch of bums that have never been heard from again. I mean, dude, some boys at our watch party were doing some
salesman now.
Blake, yeah, exactly. Some dudes at our watch party were doing some research yesterday, and this was at the Butch Jones era. In 2017, our leading sack leader on the team had 4.5 sacks on the year. 4.5 on the year. And so my point in saying that is, dude, this isn't those levels of defense. Like, Joshua Josephs will be a first 2-round draft pick. Like, a lot of these guys are going to play in the league. This is a very talented unit. Blake, the problem is how many times this year, even in this Vanderbilt game yesterday, I'm looking at the defense. They have no idea where to line up. Like, the offense is about to snap the ball, and no one even knows where they're supposed to line up. You guys realize when we have the athletes, we have the speed, we have the strength, and we have the talent, but no one knows where they're supposed to be. And as a unit, they suck. Do you realize whose fault is that? It's not the players. It's the coach. The coach puts them in position to not suck. Like, you're supposed to put your talented players in a role that fits them, Blake, that as a unit, they can perform. And Tim Banks consistently has not done that here as the defensive coordinator at Tennessee.
Correct. Now, again, there's nuance, right? There's nuance. There's a lot of things that go into these conversations. And so, there were some players on this team who didn't give their all this year. Boo Carter, who's no longer on the team, right?
Yeah.
So obviously sometimes it's like but again, it still comes back to the coach, right? And it's like, hey, look, if you got a locker room issue, you got to make a change. You got to play someone who is going to give their all. You've got, you know what I mean? And so, ultimately, I just, and look, obviously we're hot right now because we just lost by 3 touchdowns to Vanderbilt at home, which shouldn't, and that's
never happened.
Like,
never happened in our lives. Like, ever happened in our lives. Never.
Exactly. I mean, Austin, for the most of the beginning of my life, I didn't think we would ever lose to Vanderbilt because we literally beat. It was like them in Kentucky were guaranteed wins every year. I mean, Austin, for God's sakes, we were on a nearly 30-year win streak against Kentucky, and similar win streak against Vanderbilt. Okay, I mean, for God's sakes, it's an automatic win, right? And so, but even I get it, NIL, there's parity now, right? They've actually got some good players. They're rich over there at Vanderbilt. I get it, tracking, got it. But this is the University of Tennessee. You don't
But
lose by 3 scores to Vanderbilt. Just
and,
period, point
and
blank.
they keep bringing up NIL in their roster. You know, we have a higher paid roster, right? We have more money. We have a
Right.
higher talent composite. Like you're swinging and missing here, people. You're swinging and missing. I have no time to hear the Vanderbilt's talented argument because again, I'm sorry, I forget what Chatter brought it up earlier. It's not just about the result. It's about the perform. I think it was Lamone's. It's not just about the result. It's about the performance, man. If you had lost
Yes.
an OT thriller and you lost 49-42, we'd still be on here calling for Tim Banks' job, but we wouldn't be as heated because listen, we wouldn't have gotten completely embarrassed in front of 102,000 faithful in Neyland Stadium, the mecca of college football. But that happened. That happened. That adds, and by the way, it gets added to Tim Banks' resume, but it also gets added to Josh Heupel's resume. And I know that burns some fans up, but it does. And Blake, I got to respond to one of your points, dude, because you brought up Boo Carter, all right, and the Boo Carter situation. Blake, remember last offseason, we covered this. We literally covered all of this, people. It was a whole big deal whether Boo Carter was going to sign back or not. He signed a contract extension. And that's another thing. That's a whole nother like college football level discussion that, we hate. We don't like NIL contract extensions. Okay. Because first of all, they mean nothing. And second of all, it's completely ridiculous that we're letting college level kids do this. It's asinine to me. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But at the end of the day, Blake, Heupel, Tim Banks, everyone in that has a leadership position in this football program signed up for the Boo Carter experience.
Right.
They signed up for the Nico experience. You signed up for it. You tried to fight for it. And because you thought their talent outweighed the headache. Well, let me tell you right now, Nico doesn't have talent. He has athleticism, which is different from actually being good at football, right? He is an athletic person, doesn't make him good at the quarterback position. And Boo's talent for sure didn't outweigh the headache. Definitely, because I think it for sure didn't. Because listen, at the end of the day, I think Nico was guided poorly. I think Boo is guided poorly and is not a good part. Like I don't think he's right now since he was guided so poorly. I think he's making bad decisions. I think he's making poor decisions. So, but again, Heupel signed up for this, Blake. They signed up for this.
Exactly. And look, we were fans. We rooted for Boo Carter. We rooted for Nico, right? We wanted them to succeed, and we wanted the coaches to help them succeed.
Because we're cheering for the T.
But we're cheering for the T, and there comes a point where if you have shown yourself to not be a team player, then you have to, you know what I mean? Like you just can't keep beating the same dead horse. And so we wanted Nico to succeed. And in his defense, we put most of the blame on his dad. Same with Boo Carter. We wanted him to succeed, and we put most of the blame on his parents. Obviously, he does not have good role models, right? But, Austin, to your point, it's on the coaches to ensure that the sanctity of the locker room is protected, and that it is, that we're constantly being put in a position to win football games with the best players on the field.
Correct.
And so let's talk real quick about there's all kinds of points that we want to get to. We need to get to the coaching carousel eventually. A lot of chatters have brought in a lot of great points. But real quick, Austin, let's talk about kind of the main thing that you and I talked about before we got on this live stream, which is, again, Josh Heupel, not calling for a change with Josh Heupel. However, Josh Heupel needs to make a change because that's what a good coach would do, and he needs to ensure that this team and the coaching staff takes a step forward. Now, Eric in the chat made a great point about Heupel, and Austin, we've made points about Heupel specifically and what he needs to improve on, motivating his team. And then Eric brought up one that we've talked about before, which is, hey, he tries to do too much. Like he needs to, bring in a coordinator that he trusts to call plays, things like that, so they can manage the game better. But ultimately, you have got a situation where you're trending in the wrong direction on defense, and that can't continue, Austin. So he needs to make this change. And the reason that we're saying this is because the situation that we're in right now at Tennessee, this year specifically, is not acceptable. in terms of losing these games that we shouldn't lose, losing these games against Vanderbilt like the way we did, and just being okay with 8 wins or whatever, because as we've talked about
Yeah.
before, just because of the last decade,
Mm-hmm.
it's better than that. Listen, stay with me, folks. Stay with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Josh Heupel is vastly better than the last decade. We love Josh Heupel. We want Josh
Correct.
Heupel. Yes, Josh Heupel. 2022 Alabama, like Austin said, brother. Dude, that was an Austin, I'm gonna take a tangent real quick, okay? I know we got 72 people watching, and they're expecting us to talk about Tim Banks and get out our pitchforks. I'm gonna take a tangent real quick and talk about 2022 Alabama.
Okay.
You're right. You and I called each other on the phone. I was down in Arizona. Okay. I was doing some military stuff down at Fort Huachuca, Arizona. I was in the town of Sierra Vista. Okay. Freaking daggum in Mexico, basically. Okay. Watching at Buffalo Wild Wings, the 2022 Alabama game. And Austin, when we lined up for that kick, I kid you not, my heart was beating so fast that I was literally terrified because I thought I was about to have a heart attack. Austin, I was about to have a heart attack over a football game.
Yes.
I love this university. I love the Tennessee Volunteers. I love Rocky Top. I was born in Knoxville, Austin. I lived
Raised here
in the mountain. I was raised here. Austin, I grew up in a trailer park in a freaking holler, Shelton Holler in Carousel, Tennessee. Okay. In these mountains, Rocky Top is meaning all of Rocky Top. East Tennessee is my home. I love Rocky Top. I love the Vols. I grew up watching us win. I grew up in the Philip Fulmer era. I saw us win a national championship, Austin. I love the Tennessee Vols, and I literally almost had a heart attack when we lined up for a field goal to beat Alabama in 2022.
Yeah.
I will forever be grateful to Josh Heupel for that. Okay.
Correct.
But I love the Vols so much that I will not be okay with just good. I want greatness, Austin. I do. Now, because of, we're about to talk about the coaching carousel. It's a very shaky landscape in college football right now.
It is.
And so it is risky which is why we're not saying Heupel should be on the hot seat right now. However, we are saying we can't just trend down. We can't keep, we want to be in the conversation to be in the playoffs year in and year out.
Yes.
And so a good coach, he needs to take that next step, Austin. And a good coach would make a change to get better when his team is not, because obviously
it's not good enough.
We want to compete for championships.
But right now
we
it's
want
not
to
good
compete
enough.
for championships. And so it wasn't good enough this year.
Yes.
And so he needs to figure out, as the head coach, it's his responsibility. Okay, old Timmy Twinkle Toes, as someone called him earlier, you got to go. Whether it's the strength and conditioning coach, whoever it is, Austin, we need to make a change to ensure that this team is better next year, because I'll be damned, Austin, I want the Vols to win. Period. Every single year.
Every year. And listen, I'm not even expecting national championships every year, man, but we should be in the playoff conversation every year. And as Heupel always says, good teams get better, Blake. Good teams get better. Well, good coaches should get better. Good coaches should get better. And how does a good coach get better? They learn from mistakes and they adapt. And right now, your defensive coordinator, whether you're good buddies with him or not, has not performed well enough. He has not performed up to the standard here. And my next segment, Blake, and because you mentioned how, we're grateful to Heupel, but we want better. And that's true. I don't get why we wouldn't want better. So my next tangent is going to be to the people who keep bringing up the dark ages, right? We keep there's a portion of this fan base that is so battered that we just keep bringing up what it used to be. And listen, you don't have to tell us. We were there the entire time, man. We were there for the orange britches. We were there for brick by brick.
Yep.
We were there for the
Yep.
McDonald's bags of money to 3-star players. We were there for all of it, man. But let me tell y'all something. Because y'all keep talking like that's the average or that's where it should have been. Let me explain something, man. The three coaches that y'all refer to, right? We refer to Derek Dooley, Butch Jones, and Jeremy Pruitt. It's like, well, they're not. But he's not Butch Jones. He's not Derek Dooley, dude. How about 13 men on the field? Blake, listen, with Derek Dooley in the LSU game, again, these are all games that we sat down and watched. I think I could have counted 11 guys to get on the field, Blake. I'm pretty confident I could have got 11 dudes on the field. That's on Derek Dooley's resume, okay? Losing record at Louisiana Tech, and he got hired to be the head football coach of the Tennessee Volunteers. That's Derek Dooley, who, by the way, has never gotten offered to be an SEC head football coach ever again. Ever again. In fact, he's never even got offered to be a head coach anywhere on any level in the sport of football ever again. That's Derek Dooley. That's who you're comparing that to. Not a very fair comparison, Blake. I believe he's not only our worst coach ever. He's and the 1% of worst coaches ever in football. He's like the 1% of the 1% of worst coaches in football.
Exactly.
So for you people to sit here and compare Josh Heupel, like you're sitting here and saying, well, Josh Heupel's better than Derek Dooley. Anyone could be better than Derek Dooley. Anybody. And then another guy, Jeremy Pruitt. How about Jeremy Pruitt, Blake? How about the great Jeremy Pruitt? The great defensive
I don't know who's
line.
worse, Jeremy Pruitt or Derek Dooley.
That's my point. And that's another comparison. Well, look at the Jeremy Pruitt days where he's sitting out handing out bags full of literally McDonald's bags full of money to 3-star recruits, dudes who can't even play. He's paying dudes who can't even play, and he's giving them cash, which is the dumbest thing. I mean, that's the dumbest way to pay a player. I mean, you're literally begging to get caught. You're comparing Heupel and our university, the standards at our university, to a guy who literally got fired with cause. Okay, Blake, he's got fired with cause. He hasn't stepped foot in an SEC facility since he's been fired with cause. And guess what, Blake? Okay, he went to coach again. You're probably thinking, well, probably high school football, right? He probably went to coach high school football or maybe lower level Division II football. No, Blake, he went to coach women's middle school basketball. That was his next job. Was women's middle school basketball. That is his last head coaching job, Jeremy Pruitt. So again, we're not just talking about, y'all keep comparing it to the worst of our school, but you don't understand is Jeremy Pruitt would be the worst at any school. He would have been the worst at any school ever. He was one of the worst hires in the history of college football. And I would argue definitely top 5 worst hires in SEC football. So please, people, when you're trying to make the standards here, don't make the standard Derek Dooley and Jeremy Pruitt. That's not a fair standard to set because that was the bottom of the bottom. You could hire pretty much anyone in college football right now, Blake, to be the coach here. And again, to Blake's point earlier, we're not calling for Heupel to be fired. I want Heupel to be the guy. But my only point is when because there are a lot of fans doing that right now, that when you do that, you don't realize you could hire any sitting head coach at any program in football right now on the college level, and he's likely to be better than Derek Dooley or Jeremy Pruitt. He's likely to be better.
Correct. That should never be the measuring stick at the University of Tennessee ever. That should not be the way that we measure success of a head coach at Tennessee. Austin, you made a great point before we started. Doug Dickey, Bill Battle, General Robert Nealon, the man who taught Bear Bryant everything he knew. Philip Fulmer, Johnny Majors. That is the standard at the University of Tennessee. The anomaly was the decade of dysfunction. in Jeremy Pruitt and Butch Jones and Derek Dooley. And so, yes, to our point is that, look, Heupel needs to make changes because we want to compete for championships. We got a Georgia fan in the chat. Welcome, Kilo Actual. Look, you know, Georgia's competing for an look, Kilo, I'm gonna be honest with you, buddy. Before Kirby Smart, we led Georgia all time in the Georgia series before Kirby Smart. And
your head coach played 4 years here, Blake, and didn't beat us once. Your head coach. Go ask your current sitting head coach where Tennessee football stood in the SEC.
Correct.
0-4. 0-4.
We used to own, you know, Georgia. We used to be competing for SEC championships year in and year out. And so that's where we want to be. And now Georgia has a hell of a football coach.
Yes.
And our point is that we want Heupel to get to that level to where we're back to where we should be, which is competing for championships, SC championships and national championships, right? We're not saying that we expect to be, you know, to win an SEC championship every year. Because look, Nick Saban's don't grow on trees, period, point blank. Honestly, Kirby Smart's don't grow on trees. Okay. And so we get it that we're not going to be winning an SEC championship and a national championship year in and year out. However, we do want to be in the conversation every year, and we definitely don't want to be trending in the wrong direction. And we definitely, Austin, don't want to be losing to Vanderbilt at home by 21, period.
That's period. And here's the thing. And the Georgia fan in the chat said that it will go back. And I hope you're right. I hope it will go back to us beating Vanderbilt every year. But at the end of the day, man, this kind of loss doesn't get swept under the rug, Blake. This is like the people who have company over and they shove everything in their closet and they think their house is clean, but then you open the closet and it all comes out. Like, this is the kind of loss that and to Lynn's point, like, next defense coordinator, please don't bite off team. Like, Heupel has to make changes. It has to make changes. And I think he's got what it takes. I think he does. I think he has what it takes because he's shown us. He showed us in 2022. He can lead a great team. But, dude, at the end of the day, if you stay stagnant, if you keep beating your head against the wall with Timothy Banks as your defensive coordinator, nothing's going to change. We are not going to get better. And I will never relate to the fan who doesn't want to be better. Because I want this team to win a national championship every year. Do I expect that?
Yes.
No, because that's unrealistic. But if I got my choice, dude, because people talk about parity.
If I got my choice, this sport, this honestly, Austin, if I got my choice, this sport would die because Tennessee would win every single year and no one would want to watch again. And I wouldn't care because I'd be having a damn good time.
Exactly. That was exactly going to be my point, dude. If I could write history, I would write we win it 100 years in a row and everyone goes bankrupt and we go and we cry ourselves to sleep with 100 championship rings. I want to be the best every single season. Again, you can't make that the expectation because no one's going to win 10 straight national championships, but for the fans who just are cool with being stagnant and they're cool with the status quo, it's everything's fine. Everything's fine. Like, it's fine that we lost by 21. No, it's not fine. And you know what? You know how I know it's not fine, Blake? Right? If you gave, I don't know if you've seen the movie Beetlejuice, Blake, but in the movie Beetlejuice, they have what's called truth serum. If you gave Heupel, if you took away the BS coach speak, right? You took away the BS coach speak and you put truth serum in Josh Heupel and you asked him, is it okay? Is the standard here at this university and what you know, how much you know this team spends and all the resources that you know this team has, do you think it's okay to go 8-4 and lose by 21 at home to Vanderbilt? He would say no. He would say resoundingly no. That is not okay. That is not the standard here. And that should be completely unacceptable. So if your head coach is telling you, and he may not have outwardly said it in the press conference, I didn't even bother because I knew it was going to be a bunch of coach speak BS and nobody that was going to press him in the press conference. But Blake, if your own head coach is telling you that, hey, this is unacceptable and this shouldn't happen here, then why should you as a fan say it's okay? Like
Yeah.
it's and the only
Yes.
reason and the only answer is because battered Vol syndrome. That is the only one and only answer because
Yes.
y'all all grew up around the absolute worst era ever of Tennessee football.
Yes, and that is not the standard of Tennessee, and that's not the history of Tennessee. And Kilo makes a great point in the chat. The Georgia fan, says, hey, winning is hard to come by, and the SEC especially. Yes, it is. And so again, we are reasonable. We don't expect honestly, Austin. I don't know. Obviously Ohio State has a lot of resources, a lot of money, and so I'd love to be in that position. But my point is, I don't know when the next undefeated regular season is going to be.
Especially in the
Now,
SEC. In the
especially in the
SEC,
SEC in particular, especially going to 9 games, get it tracking. Now, Kurt Signetti just took, an Indiana team that was literally the bottom 5 winningest program ever, and is undefeated in the regular season. But tracking, get it. It's against Big Ten competition. Get it. It's a little easier. But my point is that I understand that an undefeated season, things like that, are going to be hard to come by. But Austin, it's not unreasonable to say, hey, look at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's 10-2.
exactly, dude. Exactly.
I mean,
why should we be the good little Tennessee fan? And what y'all got to understand, when Kirk Herbstreit says Tennessee should sign Tim Banks and Heupel to 100-year contracts, you realize Kirk Herbstreit hates Tennessee, right? Like you are tracking. Like he wants Tennessee to be back. Like y'all have to really read behind what he's actually saying.
Yes.
Like because he doesn't like Tennessee people. He never has. He's buddies with the guy who called us trailer trash, Blake. He doesn't like us.
Yes. Yeah, and ultimately he's an Ohio State homer, right? And so, he thinks that Tennessee, he's not in tune with the history of this program. He's not in tune with, but you know what I mean? The passion of Rocky Top. And so, yeah, we're not going to accept that.
No.
Yeah,
I have to touch on one other point that you made, Blake, because my only point bringing the Kirk Herbstreit thing up is that, and just to tie it all together, because you made a great point. Well, Vanderbilt didn't accept it. They just went 10-2 at Vanderbilt, like a complete non-historic program. And the Indiana example, and listen, we got a lot of pushback on our Indiana example in a couple videos ago. Let's just clarify for the people that don't understand. The SEC 9-game schedule is not even comparable to the Big Ten. Okay. It's much, much more difficult. I agree with Blake. I don't think we're going to see another undefeated SEC team because it's just too difficult. It's just too difficult in the SEC. It's an absolute gauntlet. Okay. But what you have to understand is the reason we bring up Kurt Signetti, because you do realize Indiana has played that Big Ten schedule forever, right? Like they have had the same schedule and they've still not went undefeated with said schedule. And by the way, Blake, the Big Ten has gotten harder in recent years because they've added teams like Oregon and USC. So again, I agree with the SEC fans and the Tennessee fan. The SEC is not comparable. The 9-game schedule is not comparable because it is so much tougher and the conference is so much deeper. But still, dude, going undefeated at a Big Ten program that had literally never come close to an undefeated season, had never beat Penn State at Penn State. That's what Kurt Signetti did. And again, another point of bringing that up is like, we're just pointing out how important coaching is in this sport. What an elite tier head coach can do to a program. I mean, we saw it with Heupel. Like Heupel is a good coach. And again, all those media members, the Kirk Herbstreits of the world, like they said, we're dead in the water. Everyone announced this dead years ago. But what did Heupel do? Again, a guy who's a good coach, I don't think he's an elite coach, immediately took us to 11 wins in an Orange Bowl. Like, dude, it's one of those things, man. It's anyone. I think any elite head coach can take a Power 5 program anywhere they want to go. Anywhere they want to go.
Yes. But then now take Tennessee, because we're not just any ordinary Power 5.
Oh, we're not. Exactly.
Or Power 4, sorry, but Power 4.
We have more resources. One of the most
we have more resources, more one of the most watched, more passionate fan base. you know, let's just say this, Austin. Let me talk to our not our fans, but Tennessee fans, our Tennessee fans in the chat. You deserve to win because Tennessee
You do.
wins.
Yes.
Tennessee
And
wins.
it's not
No, no,
impossible.
no,
It's not
Austin,
impossible
Austin,
here. Trust me, it's
no,
not impossible here.
Austin. We have beat Alabama more than any other school in the country.
Ever. Yep.
That includes Auburn, by the way. Now, is Alabama a top tier program
Of
in
course.
the country? Does Alabama deserve to win every year?
Yes.
Oh, they do? Okay. Well, Tennessee is right there. Now, they just had Nick Saban. We're not, Alabama is right up there with Ohio State and Michigan and all that. But Austin, we're right there. And
Well,
there's no with the right coach, we could be and should
and
be
and
tier
that's our
one.
only point. And the Georgia fan can really speak to this on the chat because Georgia was as a national power was dead in college football before Kirby Smart. You have to admit that because Blake, they hadn't won since 1980, but the right guy exploded it. And he took what was already there and made it great. That's the thing. That's what he did. He took what was already there, what was already in place at Georgia, and he made it great. So that's the only point. And it's like, listen, people, I agree. I agree with people. Heupel is our best coach since Phil Former. It's obvious. It wasn't a very high bar, Blake, but he was our best coach since Phil Former, and he's a good coach. What we're wanting, and what we're asking, is don't we all want him to become an elite coach for one? And we have to agree that he's not right
Yes.
now. And and if you can't agree with me on that point, then it's a hard stop. Like we're not going to be able to go anywhere else because I just disagree with you about our definition of an elite coach because an elite coach doesn't lose by 3 touchdowns to Vanderbilt at home. They just don't do it.
Yeah.
So if we agree that he's not an elite coach right now, but we also agree that he's a good coach and we want him to be the guy, then what has to happen? He has to make changes. And that's all we're asking. We're asking for changes. And like I've been proud on our show when we have a problem with something, we try to bring solutions. And right now,
Yes.
my solutions are simple. You have to fire Tim Banks. That is non-negotiable. Tim Banks cannot be here next year. And two, I think Heupel has to take I think at least 2 or 3 things off of his plate, okay? Which is
Yeah.
A, play calling, which people brought up in the chat, or B, which is something I've seen less people bring up, this idea of a general manager in college football,
Mhm.
which a lot of people, I've seen some people say in the chat and definitely outside the chat that the roster was the problem. The players were the problem. Newsflash, Josh Heupel has complete and utter control over the roster. So any issues that you have with the players, you ultimately
Right.
have with the coach because he controls who plays and he controls who's on the team. Okay. And with the GM, and again, like I think a lot of people miss this, man. We couldn't hit the portal hard last year because we were in the playoffs. We were prepping for the playoffs. And since college football is run by the most, it's actually run by no one. It's literally run by no one. And that's the big issue. But anyone who's involved in it are complete and utter idiots. And they thought it was a great idea to have the portal running with
Yeah.
the playoffs. So any team in the actual playoffs that's trying to win a championship is screwed by that. And I think it screwed us last year, Blake. I think it's the reason we don't have the safety depth. I think it's the reason that we don't have the linebacker depth that we would all want because Heupel was trying to prep for a game and he couldn't hit the portal. If he had a GM, Blake, that wouldn't be the case. The GM could have said, "Okay, Heupel, you focus on the X's and O's because you're dang near a savant at it. Okay, like at the very least, you're really, really good at the X's and O's. You focus on that. I'll go hit the portal for linebackers and
Yes.
safeties. Like, and that's a simple solution.
Yeah, and it's the evolution of the game. Now, does there need to be some changes to the way the portal works and all that? And that's coming down and things like that. So that's good. And yes, those changes need to be made because it was crazy. It was the Wild West. But yes, general manager, take some things off the plate, something, because it's just too much to juggle, especially in today's game with NIL and all of this stuff. And so, yeah, we gotta make those changes. Gotta motivate your team. But at the very least, we got Killer Dude in the chat. He's still pounding the table on the strength, and that we got whipped on the line of scrimmage. And so we need to get some good strength and conditioning. Look, ultimately, Austin, we're sitting here on the internet with a microphone in front of our face. And we're just two dudes. We're two brothers who love the Vols. Obviously, y'all have seen we're very passionate. Um, we're just two dudes. We get it. Josh Heupel gets paid millions, but that's the point, is he gets paid millions. So, brother,
Yeah.
figure it out. Figure out what changes you got to make to ensure that this doesn't happen again, that we lose to Vanderbilt this way at home, because it's not the standard here at Tennessee. Austin, we're going to be moving to the coaching carousel conversation here soon. So, folks, again, we really appreciate the support on this episode so far. This live stream has been a great live stream. Please keep jumping in the chat, letting us know your thoughts. We're going to try to keep up as much as possible. Unfortunately, obviously, we can't keep up with everything, but we want this to be a conversation with you guys. And so we're going to continue chatting with you guys. Keep jumping in there. Drop us a like on the video, and then please share the video with your friends. Share it on social media, all that good stuff. We want to keep this conversation going, and we're about to talk about the coaching carousel. And someone just talked about Napier in the chat. We are going to be talking about the crazy coaching carousel.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun conversation. Lane has done it again.
Yes.
It looks like. So we're going to enjoy that. But Austin, let's tie a bow on this conversation. It's in the title. Tim Banks. That's our solution right now.
Yeah.
Whether you promote Rodney Gardner, or yeah, exactly. Whether you bring in a guy, maybe it's the Auburn defensive coordinator. Someone said hire Napier as defensive coordinator. I don't know about that, but that's the bottom line. Is we want Heupel to take that next step, and we got to make a change.
I agree, and that's it. And I think Kilo asked in the chat, are we saying Josh is inadequate? I'm not really saying that. I think all I'm saying is, and I don't think it's crazy for me to want this, I don't want to lose by 3 touchdowns to Vandy, and I don't want to have a season where, yes, people can say all they want, it was the preseason projections, whatever. At the end of the day, y'all watched the games. Did you think this should have been an 8-4 team? Do you really feel that way? Because I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way. When I grew up in an era, Blake, where I watched the NFL draft as an NFL fan. I never expected to hear Tennessee Volunteers names called in the NFL draft during the Derek Dooley or the Jeremy Pruitt era, or even the Butch Jones era. I mean, it was few and far between, man. Guys who got drafted. I'm about to watch the NFL draft this year and hear multiple guys in the first round for the first time since Philip Fulmer has been coach, Blake. And I'm supposed to just sit back here and say, oh, it's a talent issue? Like, no, I don't think this was an 8-4 team. I don't think this was a talent issue. It was the first time I've watched a Tennessee Volunteer football team in my entire life, and I felt like we had the talent to compete with every team on our schedule. Does that mean we should have won a national championship? No, it doesn't mean that. I think we had a relatively easy schedule. I think that's what it means partly. But I think we had the talent to compete with every team on the schedule, and that ended up in 8-4. And I think that's a very disappointing feeling. Very similar to the 2016 team, if y'all remember. I mean, you beat Florida and Georgia, and then you find a way to not even make the SEC championship. So that's how I felt about this season. So I don't think it's unfair to me as a fan who goes to the games, who supports the team, who has a podcast about it, for whatever that's worth. Probably nothing. But anyways, that we talk about it and cover it on a daily basis, Blake, or a weekly basis. And I'm sitting here asking, I'm like, I just want things to get better. Is that crazy? Like, I just want things to get better when I know,
exactly.
I mean, the current coach here can be better. Like, I've seen it from him. And I think that we've brought some legitimate solutions. I think we're all, I mean, I've seen very few Tim Banks supporters at this point. I think that's step number one, right? It's simply find a new defensive coordinator, get a fresh face in there, because what's been happening and the product we've been getting is just it's not acceptable.
Exactly. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line, is we want to see improvements. And that's not crazy to say. And we want to see Heupel do it, because we love Heupel. We want more moments like 2022 Alabama. We want more moments like, beating Florida, breaking the streak against Florida, and breaking the streak in the Swamp just last week. We want more of those moments, but they are sprinkled with these things that are just not good. Following up that Florida performance with this performance against Vandy at home is not good. So we want to see changes and improvements, and that's the bottom line. Shout out to everyone in the chat here. Boomhauer, love the name, by the way. I've been binging some King of the Hill recently, so love the name Boomhauer. Appreciate you in the chat. Appreciate Brandon in the chat. Fast in the chat. Welcome. And then we've got Just Josh and you here in the chat, and Dustin in the chat. Shout out to Dustin. He said hey, look, with NIL and the portal, it's changed the game, and championship caliber teams are literally, bought now. And that's absolutely true. And so, but, to that point, our point is that a good coach can do it, can have success. And so that's what we want to see. But folks, keep jumping in the chat here. Reese is still talking about Nico, brother. You're like that Japanese soldier that kept fighting World War II
dude,
30 years after it ended.
Exactly, dude.
But I'm wondering, Reese, be honest with me, brother. Are you actually Nico's dad? Are you Big Nick?
And
be honest, brother.
Be honest, dude. And I am curious if you're a Tennessee fan, because or watch the games, because I listen. Nobody else has come to that conclusion. Nobody has come to that conclusion, unless you are Big Nick. Like, you are actually Big Nick, and this is your burner, and you're currently in the chat right now, because no one else has come to that conclusion.
But look, here's the deal. Look, I have found myself, Austin, this. I've found myself in situations in the past where I am the minority opinion fighting against the majority, and fighting a battle. And so, Reese, brother, listen, I empathize with you. And look, just because the majority, hold on.
Okay.
Just because the majority believes it doesn't mean it's the truth.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big proponent of that. However, Reese, I think the cold hard facts are just against you in this one, brother.
And let me just say,
just against you,
without revealing too much, like, the one specific thing I'm thinking of that you're talking about, you and Reese are both wrong. So it turns out the minority was both wrong in both those situations.
That's a lot of hate, brother. That's a lot of hate. Right. For those of you who aren't familiar with Vol Talk lore, he's referring to.
We're getting into
and look,
this.
I have since put away Twitter. Okay, I'm no longer on Twitter again. But I unfortunately got back on Twitter because of this podcast, and then I got dragged into make arguments and stuff like that. And yes, maybe they were of my own making, but essentially what Austin's referring to is I was arguing with LSU fans about us being wide receiver youth. I still believe just a few good years, Austin, we can be back in that position. Don't argue with me on this. Okay. Just a few more good years, and we'll be back.
You didn't have to admit that. You didn't have to admit that while 60 were watching. But anyway, should we get into coaching carousel?
Yes, let's do it. Reese, we appreciate the conversation, brother. We really do. We appreciate everyone in the chat. Keep chatting. Please like the video. Shout out to Just Josh and you. He called out, look, we got all these people watching, but only 36 likes. Give us a like. We would really appreciate it. And of course, if you're watching after the fact, drop us a comment. Let us know what you think about that big, long conversation we just had. But now, Austin, yes, let's get into the coaching carousel. Okay, so folks, we've been teasing this. We've talked about the coaching carousel change that might happen at Tennessee, that we want to see happen at Tennessee. But Austin, there have been a lot of changes across all of college football. Okay, and so we're going to talk about some of these pins that have been dropping. We're going to talk about a video that we made recently where reporters steered us in the wrong direction on Arkansas. And so we're going to talk about all of those. But first, Austin, we got to talk about leaving Lane Kiffin. Lane the Leaver. He's doing it again, brother. Doing it again. Lane just can't help himself. He cannot stay in one place, Austin. It looks like, for all intents and purposes, now we're not going to make the same mistake twice, okay? We made this mistake with Golish. As far as we can see on reports right now, it's not a done deal, but it looks like Lane Kiffin is going to be going to LSU leaving Ole Miss. Now the question is whether he does it now. He wants to stay through the postseason. Cool, buddy. Point is, Austin looks like he's leaving Ole Miss.
It does. It looks like he's leaving Ole Miss, and in classic Lane Kiffin fashion, he wants to make it a drama show. That's what he loves. He's a drama queen. And listen, there was a reporter this week, and I'm going to get into it. I'm going to push some feathers. Some LSU fans are going to get a little upset because you want to support your new coach, right? You want to support your new coach. Well, good luck with that. So here's the deal. An Ole Miss reporter this week called Lane Kiffin a hoe, right, on a podcast. He said you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. And let me tell you, newsflash.
Pardon for our younger listeners. Pardon the language.
Newsflash, Blake. He's right. The reporter's right. Right. He didn't get a lot of support.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Lane Kiffin went up to the guy and he confronted the guy with 5 police officers, Blake. 5 police officers, and he got a bunch of tough guys on Twitter. Man, Lane really showed that reporter up. The reporters got pissed running down his leg. Yeah, I would too if 5 police officers who are armed came up on me with the Ole Miss head coach. Yeah, I'd be pretty scared too, dude. I think it had a little bit more to do with the 5 police officers than the puffy 50-year-old dude. No one's scared of Lane Kiffin, bro. No one has looked at Lane Kiffin and said, "Oh no, Lane Kiffin's coming." Give me a break, dude. No one's scared of Lane Kiffin.
He posts on his social media about doing hot yoga. I mean, come on.
Give me a break, dude.
Let's just quit.
No one's been scared of someone that openly admits to doing hot yoga. Like, you could have kept that private, but you decided to bring that to the world. Like, and you think people are scared of that guy? Like, no one's been scared of anyone who's done hot yoga and decided that's a good thing to admit out to the world. So let's get that out of the way. The reporter was right, and Lane Kiffin's a hoe. He's found once again another situation that he thinks better is Blake, right? He started at the Raiders, got fired because he sucked. He went to Tennessee, and then his dream job came open. His dream job, USC. So he went to and left us in the night like a little rat for USC. And then what did he do there? He got egg on his face, Blake. He completely and utterly failed miserably. He got fired. Okay. They didn't even let him back on the team plane. That was the story. Like, they literally didn't even let him on the plane. They said, "Nope, you're not coming home with us. You're staying here." And so guess what? Lane Kiffin was fired, and then he started his resurgence, right? He got the OC job at Alabama. And this is the problem, Blake. A lot of young fans, they don't even know about the old stuff. They just remember him starting at Alabama. They just remember all the pictures of him on the sideline with Alabama and winning national championships. And he won those because of Nick Saban, by the way, not because of Lane Kiffin. And then he went to Florida Atlantic, right? And he's starting his head coaching career again, right? And then, of course, he's going to bounce from Florida Atlantic. Like, I'm literally here just to use you, Florida Atlantic. That's what he, he basically openly told him that. I'm literally here just to use you. And that's exactly what he did. He got his way back in the SEC, Blake, with Ole Miss, and he had a good run. He had a good, tough run with 0 playoff appearances until this year, and Ole Miss isn't going to let him coach in the playoffs, which I find really funny. That's really ironic. You never made the playoffs, and the one year you do make the playoffs, you're still not going to make it because you're going to be at home watching it while someone else coaches your team. That's actually pretty comical. But then guess what? Another job comes open, Blake. LSU, and the big bright LSU. And man, LSU so great. And he's going to go to LSU, right? Newsflash to the LSU fans. Do you think it stops at you? Is that what you, because y'all are all really excited right now. Like, they're all really amped up. We got Lane Kiffin, one of the best coaches in college football. You think you're the last stop? You think if he has success there, and let's say a Kalen DeBoer at Alabama gets fired, Blake, you don't think Lane Kiffin's jumping ship?
He's jumping. He's gone.
He's gone, buddy. Dude. Don't let Alabama come open during the Lane Kiffin tenure at LSU. Don't let Alabama come. All you LSU fans better be hoping and praying Kalen DeBoer is just good enough to keep his job at Alabama while Kiffin's there. Because guess what? He'll leave you in the middle of the night too. And for the Bama fans who thinks the train stops there, Blake, because you would think it's the pinnacle, it's Alabama, that's the top. Nope. You better hope the NFL and the Oakland Raiders don't call calling again, because guess what? Kiffin's gone there too. If the NFL offers Kiffin at Alabama, he gone. He is gone. That is Lane Kiffin, people. Learn your lesson. Ole Miss fans, we try to tell him, Blake, we try to tell him, don't get comfortable. Don't get comfortable. He ain't staying.
Don't do it.
And they told us, Blake, no, y'all wrong. It's different, man. He loves it here in Oxford. It's different. It's not different. And it's not going to be different in Baton Rouge. And it's not going to be different in Tuscaloosa if he doesn't get ran out of college football at that point. Listen, man, he's going to keep jumping until he hits the pinnacle.
Well, and what even is the pinnacle for him? Because he said USC was his dream job. He was already in the NFL. What is the pinnacle? Who knows for him? That's just what he does. And Austin, let's be very clear that Lane Kiffin is not Tony Vitello. Okay, I'm gonna pull in some Tennessee baseball. Tony Vitello was truly distraught. Oh, I mean, for God's sakes, Austin, he took like a week to make the decision because he was so torn of going to the pinnacle of baseball,
correct,
in MLB. Because he actually loves the Vols and actually loves Knoxville. Lane Kiffin doesn't love Oxford, doesn't love Ole Miss.
Oh,
Lane Kiffin's not going to love he's not going to love Baton Rouge and LSU. He's going to do what he always does. He's going to have his good time. He's going to, probably I'm going to keep it PG for, the younger listeners. Shout out to Rhonda and her family. Love you guys. He's going to probably have, his good time down in Baton Rouge, and then he's going to get tired of it. And then he's going to, be ready for something else.
Like I said,
ready for a change of scenery, brother.
You better hope that Bama job doesn't come open, LSU fans. You better hope.
And honestly, Austin, it might not even be Alabama. Who knows? He might just, in 5 years, he might just get an itch. Or who knows? Maybe he's going to get fired. Maybe he's not going to be all they cracked up to, or all they hope he cracks up to be.
If any of you fine folks in the chat were watching the Iron Bowl last night, this decision came, ironically, Blake, his decision came in the middle of the night. Do you all want to know why it came in the middle of the night? Do you think Lane Kiffin wasn't watching for the result of the Iron Bowl? You think that wasn't of interest to him? You think after 2 years of 9-3 at Bama, had Bama lost last night, which they should have if the SEC officials weren't dragging them to the finish line, by the way, Alabama fans, if the officials weren't dragging your asses to the finish line after Auburn's been screwed 3 times this year, man. How many apology letters are you going to have to write to that poor university, SEC officials? Anyways, I digress. You don't think Lane was watching for that little result? Listen, man, there's a lot of rumors circulating that Kalen DeBoer might be jumping to Penn State, and I guarantee, Blake, had they lost the Iron Bowl, Kalen DeBoer would have read the writing on the wall, jumped in Penn State, and then all of a sudden that LSU deal is falling through. Because guess where Kiffin's heading, baby? He's heading to Tuscaloosa. That's exactly what would have happened last night, depending on how that Iron Bowl went.
And let's be clear, too. Right now, look, it's not final yet. People are saying it's looking likely that he's going to go to LSU. Well, listen, look. Honestly, he's saying right now that, he's, wanting to, or there's rumors that he's saying, I want to stay for the postseason, and get Ole Miss through the postseason first and whatever. Let's be honest, brother. If he's waiting on anything, he's waiting on what old Kalen's doing to see if he might be able to get a little off. Because Austin, he's been quartered by obviously Florida. Florida was told to kick rocks. I guess apparently even maybe Arkansas, wanted to try to throw their hat in the ring, things like that. Look, folks, he's going to go, like someone said in the chat, he's loyal only to himself. He's going to go, wherever the money is, wherever, the prestige is, things like that. And so, if Alabama opens up, you best bet he might leave Austin. He might leave LSU. He might even do better than he did against us. He might leave LSU before he's even hired.
Exactly.
Before he even gets on campus, he might leave LSU.
That could have happened if DeBoer missed the playoffs. And Jimmy in the chat says, guess it's the officials' fault that Vandy beat Tennessee's ass too.
Buddy, we have been live for an hour and 47 minutes and haven't said that a single time, dude. Like, just please, find something else to do on Sunday. That is just, it's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing to come say when that was not part of our analysis at all. We have literally been live
Yeah.
for I don't know what you're doing here. Appreciate you being here. Hope you hit the like button. But dude, buddy, come on. We have been here for an hour and 45 minutes. We got killed by Vandy. We owned it. And we're pissed about it. And we talked about it for an hour and a half. Like, come on, man.
Yep.
Yeah, your team got I don't know what Alabama's fans doing here in the chat. Your team got bailed out by the officials last night, buddy. You better thank them because the SEC wanted Alabama in the playoff, bud. They wanted another team. And so guess what? They dragged them to the finish line against Auburn, buddy. You're going to have to accept it.
It's going to be interesting too, Austin, if they lose to Georgia, and we got a couple of Georgia fans in the chat. If they lose to Georgia in the SEC championship, all of a sudden it's a real interesting conversation. And I don't know if they're going to get kicked out, or what, if they'll still sneak in, but it'll be interesting for sure. So,
and dude,
but
and
yeah,
listen,
no, we're not putting that on the rest.
Of course we're not. Yeah. You mentioned SEC championship. Listen, dude. And maybe this is because the Bulldogs fan in the chat, but honestly, I said this even before I got on the show this morning. I don't like Georgia. I don't like Georgia at all. I hope they beat Alabama by 50. I hope
absolutely.
they beat you by 50. And then they put BYU in the playoffs instead of Alabama, dude. And for all the Vols fans on the fence, like, who do I root for? You always root against Alabama. Always.
Always.
It's not a question.
Alabama.
It's not a question.
Point blank.
You're rooting. If you know what's right, you're rooting for the Bulldogs in the SEC championship. And Lord, I hope Kirby figures it out against Bama, man. I hope he figures it out and beats the brakes off of them.
I hope he does too, because he has not been able to thus far. But so Austin, okay, so Lane does it again. He's leaving Ole Miss. He might even leave LSU before he even signs the paperwork.
Signs the contract.
Signs the contract. But let's talk through the rest of the changes, Austin, because look, and let's start first and foremost with, we put out a video on this channel. Reports came down that our former offensive coordinator, Alex Golesh, was getting hired at Arkansas. And so we did a video on it because we think that would be a fantastic hire. And in fact, we're kind of sad for Arkansas fans because we think he's going to be a good coach. And it looks like Arkansas wanted him. But unfortunately, Austin, those reports were a little hasty, and he actually ended up leaving or not signing the deal with Arkansas, and instead looks to be signing a deal with Auburn. So now Alex Golesh is going to Auburn. Still think that's a great hire for Auburn. And in fact, we hate Alabama so much that obviously we're going to root for Auburn against them. And so I would love to see Alex Golesh beat Alabama again like he did in 2022. And then there's been other changes. So speaking of Arkansas, it looks like they're going to be hiring the Memphis coach, Ryan Silverfield. That's it. Ryan Silverfield, the Memphis coach. And then talk us through, Austin. Just of course, James Franklin ended up. This is old news, but he ended up at West Virginia.
Virginia Tech.
Talk us through. Or I'm sorry, Virginia Tech, the Hokies. So talk us through, Austin, what are the rest of these coaching kind of rumors or all the pins that have dropped thus far? Because it's so hot and heavy right now with the coaching.
It is. And it looks like the team that's now been left out of this is Ole Miss because they've been holding out hope that their coach. But listen, that relationship is completely mended. It's completely broken. All the Ole Miss fans hate Lane Kiffin, and they should. They should hate Lane Kiffin. If you're one of the morons out there who think, Ole Miss fans should be thankful for what Lane Kiffin did. No, they shouldn't. They should not be thankful for Lane Kiffin did, because guess what? What is in the trophy case? What's in the trophy case? It's complete dust. There's nothing there. So what is there to be thankful about? So anyways, I digress. Really, the team that's been kind of left without a partner here, Blake, is Ole Miss, it seems. You mentioned the misinformation that we accidentally put out. I hope our hardcore listeners know that we would not do that on purpose. We were going based on multiple reports on social media, and they weren't like fake reports either. Like these are like were legitimate reporters that were reporting Golish to Arkansas, but apparently that was never agreed to. And honestly, it feels a little bit like, we're talking with the Kiffin situation. Like it feels like one of those things that Golish was probably talking to Arkansas and interested in Arkansas, but
Right.
better jobs called. I mean, that was the reality. I think Golish was also waiting for the result of the Iron Bowl, Blake, because I think if the interim coach at Auburn had beat Bam in the Iron Bowl, he probably gets the job. But since he didn't beat didn't beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl, that job is now open. And then, of course, Auburn likely a more desirable spot than Arkansas. Sorry, Arkansas fans, but it's what happened. And Golish chooses Auburn. Listen, same thing I said about Arkansas when they hired Golish, or didn't hire Golish. They were hoping to hire Golish. It's a great hire for Auburn. I think that's a great hire for Auburn. I think it's a stable move for an organization that needs stability, Blake. Like Auburn has taken a lot of different chances on a lot of different characters. I think Golish is just a stable move for a team that needs a little bit of that. So yeah, I think that's a good move for Auburn. And I think Arkansas, got a decent deal out of this. I mean, Ryan Silverfield is a guy who, funny enough, has beat Alex Golish this season, Blake, at Memphis. Memphis beat South Florida this season, and Ryan Silverfield was the coach. And also Silverfield is a guy that beat Arkansas this season, Blake, funny enough. They literally beat them head to head. So it would make sense that Arkansas is interested in that guy. Listen, I will say with all these group of 5 coaches, Blake, including John Summerall for Florida, these are risk. I mean, these are all risk.
Yeah.
I think Golish has the SEC experience as a coordinator. But listen, a lot of them, they're unknown commodities, man. Like they were good at a lower level. It's very hard to project. And Florida fans should know this with Billy Napier, Sun Belt Billy. He came from the Sun Belt and he was not successful at
Sun
Florida.
Belt Johnny now.
Exactly. Sun Belt Johnny now. Exactly. So you just don't know if these group of 5 guys are going to translate. You really don't until you do. So it's hard to know out of these 3 guys, which again, all very similar resumes, like really good group of 5 resumes, turned programs around that weren't doing well, had a lot of success. It's very tough to say out of the Auburn, Florida, and Arkansas hires, like which one will end up being the best. Time will tell, man. Time will tell, because none of them have had to recruit in the SEC as a head coach, which is probably the biggest factor. And they're all coming into the SEC at a very tough time, Blake. We're going to the 9-game schedule. So I don't know how anybody's going to handle that. We don't know how any of us are going to handle the 9-game schedule, which is going to be insanely difficult. So, but I think they're all solid hires, but dude, I think it's a great, it tells us that this coaching carousel, there's not a lot of options out there, man. Not a lot of options, dude. Not a lot of good, solid options. That's why you have these teams going after a coach in Lane Kiffin who has never won as a head coach anything of significance, and they're throwing everything at him. They're throwing $100 million at him because that's the hot name on the market, and they know it's pretty easy to lure Lane Kiffin away from where he's at.
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
It doesn't.
It doesn't take much to lure them away, and honestly, probably doesn't even just take money. You could probably lure them away with a few different things. But yes, and that's going back to the Heupel conversation, and the fact that whole debate we had. That's part of the argument, and the reason why we love Heupel and we want to see him improve is because he is a good coach, and good coaches are hard to come by. So hear us on that. Good coaches are hard to come by, and we are thankful that we have a good coach. We just want to take the next step to great, right? But yes, we could be in a situation where, like Florida, we're taking a chance on Sunbelt Johnny after we just took a chance on Sunbelt Billy, and so it could certainly be worse for us. But bottom line, like you said, with these teams is we're gonna see. No one knows until you do know. The same with Lane Kiffin. He hasn't won in the and another point too. that people bring up, and it's a good point, is that there are very few coaches who have been to the pinnacle right now who are active, right? You've got Kirby Smart, basically, Ryan Day, and who am I forgetting, Austin? Is it Dan Lanning, maybe? I think there's only like, what, 3 or 4 coaches? Oh, freaking
Dabo.
uh, Dabo. So there's very few coaches who have won natties that are active in college football right now. Got it. Tracking, right? And so it is difficult to come by, and some teams are getting left in the dust, and I don't want to be one of those teams. That's why we want Heupel to just improve. Okay, we're not trying to get out here and be part of this crazy carousel, because you look at, like you said, Austin, Ole Miss, and they might be left in the dust, man.
Exactly.
They might be left in the dust.
It's a great point, Blake, and I'm glad you tied Heupel into it, because I don't want to be a part of the coaching carousel, but I also want my current coach to be better and grow as a coach and get better as a coach when I know it's out there. It's not my biggest issue is that the people, the fans, and some of the big time media members that seem to think there's just shackles on the University of Tennessee, and that this is the ceiling, and you can't get past that ceiling. It's like, well, no, you can with the right players and coaches, you absolutely can. The coaching carousel is insane, man. We'll see how it all plays out, what Ole Miss ends up doing. And then you have teams like Florida State who are, actually, so this is a great point to Kilo's point in the chat, how LSU struggled to pay the $50 million buyout for Brian Kelly. And now they're offering Lane Kiffin 90. That's a big thing in college football right now. These massive buyouts, Blake, and these teams ultimately, like Florida State and Mike Norvell, saying our hands are legitimately tied. We cannot afford this money, so we're going to have to stick with this coach. And it tells me, Blake, well, don't pay the coach that until
Stop
you know.
paying him that much. I think it's
paying
crazy
him
for LSU to offer that much money to Lane Kiffin when he,
such a risk, dude. It's such a risk.
It's-
When to Kylo's point, I keep hearing how LSU has all this money and everything. Like, oh my God. Dude, they tried to fire Kelly with cause so they didn't have to pay it. But they have to pay the full amount because lawyers got involved. Like, read the news, people. Actually read the news. Like, and I'm not calling any of our chatters out. I'm calling other people I've seen out that aren't even in our chat. But yeah, Joey's asked, how does Norvell have a job? Money. That's why they can't afford to pay the guy, because they signed him to this big contract. So imagine if Lane Kiffin doesn't meet expectations at LSU, because all I'm going to say is, and maybe this is an indictment on me, and it probably is to a certain extent, but Blake, if you gave me $90 million, you think I'm just going to I'm going to strap my bootstraps on and go to work as hard as I did before I had 90 million. Like, people,
I might get a little lazier, brother.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's the point. That's where I'm getting at. When you guarantee someone life-changing wealth and generational changing wealth, and I know Lane Kiffin was making good money before, but we're talking about almost $100 million, dude. And you lock that in. I just wouldn't think, as an LSU fan or any college football fan right now, and say, oh, guaranteed Lane Kiffin is going to be next in line with those national championship winning LSU coaches. I just wouldn't go to the betting window and guarantee that with my hard-earned dollars.
I wouldn't bet 90 mil on it. That's for dang sure.
Exactly. That's where I'm getting at, because it's a $90 million gamble.
I mean, shoot, you 90 mil when you're already on the hook for 50 mil. Again, for our fellow Vols fans who struggle with math like we do, that's over 100 mil. In fact, that's pushing the top half of 100 mil. That's pushing $140
million.
I mean, that's a lot of money, and folks are talking about in the chat, Boomhauer and a couple others talking and Joey, I think, talking about it's falling on the taxpayers, man. The taxpayers are having to pay 150
I mean, dude, the governor at LSU had to come out and tell and fire the AD because you're costing the taxpayers too much money. Again, just read the news, people. Like, at LSU, this big bad university that some of their fans like to talk about, the governor of Louisiana had to fire the athletic director because you're costing my people too much money. And you think the solution to that is hire a guy who has never won a national championship or even been to the playoff as a head coach. Let's give him $90 million. Okay. Well, like, good luck. And again, you better hope Kalen DeBoer is good enough to keep his job.
Now, listen, the good news for LSU fans is, when Lane Kiffin does inevitably leave you, then you're not on the hook, at least for that 90 mil.
That full buyout, exactly.
Hey, that full buyout. Hey, look at the bright side. Look at the bright side.
Silver lining.
When Lane leaves in the middle of the night, at least you won't be on the hook for 90 mil. You'll still owe the 50 mil to old Brian Kelly and his goofy butt.
Yeah.
But at least again, this is assuming that Lane Kiffin does go to LSU and doesn't leave them. It doesn't break his own record in how quick he leaves the school, leaving LSU before he even gets to campus.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hysterical, man. Because like all these, because I just watching all this play out in the coaching carousel, these Florida fans and LSU fans and Ole Miss fans, although they gave up pretty early, all those fans going back and forth. Oh, I want Lane Kiffin. I want Lane Kiffin. You're all playing for the eventual leave us in the night sweepstakes here, people. Like, you just like read the writing on the wall. This guy's not changing. He's not retiring at LSU, buddy. Like it's either another damning buyout to the taxpayers that's gonna cripple Louisiana, or we're burning mattresses in the middle of the night because he's heading to Tuscaloosa. Like, those are the options. Like, that's how this ends.
What a time to be alive in Tennessee history, burning mattresses on campus when Lane Kiffin left us in the middle of the night. Ole Miss officially welcome to the club. Arkansas, I guess, welcome to the club as well. Unfortunately, Alex Golish kind of hoodwinked you a little bit too. It's been a crazy coaching carousel, man. Crazy situation. We're going to keep a pulse on it, Austin. This is the Vol Talk channel. We talk all things volunteer sports, but we love college football. And so we're going to be talking, if we can relate it to the Vols in any way, if it's freaking college football, we're going to be talking about it. So folks, please subscribe if you haven't already. If you love college football, even if you're not a Vol fan, we would appreciate a subscription. And of course, like the video if you haven't already. Jump in the comments, jump in the chat if you haven't already, and let us know your thoughts. But Austin, man, it's been a 2-hour show.
Yeah.
What a massive monster show.
My goodness.
And brother, listen, I think we were almost to 100. I think we broke 90, Austin. I think we might have broke 90. We definitely broke 80 several times. So we really, really appreciate you guys and your support and your interest today. And we still have over 40 watching right now. So please, for those of you that are watching, again, show us some love, give us a like on that video. But Austin, let's talk real quick about the next couple weeks for Vol Talk. And so the regular season is officially over for football. And of course, we're not going to the playoffs, unfortunately. We'll cover the bowl, but it's no longer
reluctantly,
season, folks. Reluctantly, we will cover the bowl. I think, Austin, what the plan is you and Dakota. So I will not be available next Sunday. However, you and Dakota are going to be going live next Sunday at our regular time, perhaps, to kind of cover the selection Sunday, right?
Yes, that was definitely the plan if we beat Vandy, Blake. Those plans may have went out the window a little bit, because that might just end up now turning into like a soapbox discussion like this really has for 2 hours. So we'll see on that. If y'all want, Dakota and I, if you haven't watched the show for a long time, Dakota sometimes fills in for Blake, or sometimes we do a 3-man show. If you all are interested in us going live for, as Blake said, Selection Sunday, where basically the official playoff rankings are revealed, we might do that. We might get on there and talk a little general college football, but also us a little bit. At this point, though, I don't know, because we kind of expected that to be a win on Saturday. So we'll see. But look out for it if we do go live.
Yes. I'm dropping a poll in the chat. Hopefully, I did it hastily, so hopefully it's good. Let us know, yes or no. Would you like a live stream next Sunday? And Austin, I think the good folks at home are probably going to overwhelmingly look. This has been a banger of a live show, and it's been really fun. And we honestly, the chatters have been awesome. They have made the live stream better, so we thank you all. Can't take all the credit, but I think the good folks at home, Austin, are probably going to overwhelmingly vote for more Vol Talk, brother. The people need Vol Talk. But yeah, so like I said, I won't be available next week. We're going to continue to bring you content. So we're going to drop some clips this week. We normally have a show on Tuesdays as well. We will drop a clip for that on Tuesday if you weren't able to catch all of this show. And then we're going to continue to drop clips. And then we're going to cover the bowl reluctantly, as Austin said. And then within the next 2 or 3 weeks, Austin, we're going to be doing a season review. So at the very least, folks, drop us a subscription and turn on the notifications for that, because that season review will probably have Dakota. Like Austin said, we'll have a 3-man show. It's going to be a really fun show. It's going to be a huge show. It's going to be long like this. So please jump in, hang out with us. Let us know your thoughts. We'd love to chat with you guys on the season review. And then after that, Austin, we will be transitioning fully into basketball season. Now, the basketball Vols unfortunately dropped. They let Kansas come back, unfortunately. But we did get a big win against Houston. And so this basketball team looks – yep, exactly. This basketball team looks poised to have a good year this year. So we're excited to cover the basketball Vols with Rick Barnes and that team. We're going to cover the Lady Vols as well, see how they do this season. We hope Kim Caldwell can get that program back to where it should be. And then, of course, eventually on down the road, we'll also start looping in baseball once baseball starts back up, because we talk all things volunteer sports, Austin. So
we do.
Folks, it has been really fun. Thank you all very much for jumping in the chat. If you're watching after the fact, jump in the comments. Let us know, what is your solution to improving after this year? Obviously not the result we wanted, especially to end the season against Vanderbilt. It's not acceptable. So let us know, what is your solution to doing better next year and not letting Vanderbilt, little brother, win one against us again. And we would love to know that. And folks, we're going to see you on our next live show. Until then, as always, baby, go freaking Vols.
GBO.